morning, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of The Hunting Controversial. If you didn't watch episode 1, my name is Kendall Kashula, and also if you didn't watch episode 1, you should definitely go and have a look at it when you're done with this video. So, pleasantries aside, let's go into today. Our topic at hand is blind hunting. So to those of you who don't know, blind hunting or hunting with the hide is basically a shelter that's built to blend in with the bush, and hunters use it to essentially ambush or wait out an animal and then shoot it. The interesting thing about it is some people don't think it's ethical because you've lured the animal to a place where you can be hidden and then shoot it, because it's too easy, because the animal doesn't know you're there. Also, sometimes the ethics vary with the method. For example, if you bow hunt from a blind at, let's say, a water point or along a game path where you know game frequently travels, it's not frowned upon in the same manner of hunting game with a rifle. But from my experience, the usual defining point of this is what you're hunting. So before we carry on, duly note, everything I'm about to say is from my own experience. It's just what I know. It's just what I've learned. But the comment section is below the video, and I really want you guys to fill it up because I want to know what you think as well. So, back to the topic. When you hunt leopards and lions, you bait them. So you hang up a piece of meat, they start feeding there, you build a blind. When they come in to feed, you shoot them. So, to break it down, you basically lure them there, let's be honest. But on these hunts, 90% of the time, a rifle is used. Not a lot of people are hunting leopards or lions with a bow, but it's not considered not sporting because, in my opinion, they're dangerous game. So Zimbabwe's dangerous game is leopard, lion, buffalo, hippo, and elephant. And rhino, but that's not really worth a consideration as they're not hunted. They're a specially protected species in the country due to their not having many numbers. So we won't consider them in our dangerous game list. So the objective behind this is what people generally are basically saying is it's fine to use a blind with a gun if it's dangerous game, but if you're using a gun on plains game, for example, a wildebeest, then it's not fine. And I don't know, is that a fair assumption? Hyenas are not dangerous game, but they're often hunted with a blind on a bait, and obviously rifles are used most of the time, and no one says anything about that. But if you ambush at a water point and shoot an animal with a gun, then this is apparently an unethical way of hunting. So, opinions may vary. In my opinion, it comes down to the fact that true hunting is hard work. It requires a lot of effort, a lot of strategy, and that is what makes it sporting, for lack of a better word. It's not really hunting to do, for example, a canned hunt. When you walk into a pen and you just walk up to a lion that's tame, it's used to people, and you shoot it. To give a base equivalent, it's like stepping into your garden and shooting your house cat. It is not a hunt. And in that sense, just on an ethics level, I don't agree with it. I think if you're hunting, it is important to be hunting in the truest sense of the word. So, for example, hunting with a blind but using a bow is still true hunting because bow hunting is not easy. Shot placement with an arrow is extremely important, and that comes down a lot to how is your animal standing when it comes in. And believe me, you can build a blind as nice as you like. You cannot control the angle of your animal when it comes in to this water point or along this game path, for example. Not to mention the fact that bows don't do the distance of rifles. They require much more skill to handle. And all in all, there are other factors such as jumping the string. So when a bow goes off, the string makes a slight pinging sound when it slams forward. And because an arrow is slow, animals actually hear the sound and jump out of the way, and your arrow misses them completely. And all of this is, of course, assuming you even get the animal to come in. A lot of people would argue that if you build a blind at a water trough where you've seen zebra drinking every day for a few days, obviously they're going to come in and you're just going to shoot them. This is not true. I once spent 5 days in a blind hunting a kudu with my bow, and it was at no fault of my blind, of the wind, or of anything, because it did end up coming in and I did manage to shoot it. But this was a kudu that I had seen there regularly for well over a week prior to my setting up to hunt it. So ultimately, it's important to remember that animals are not predictable. You can plan and set up as much as you like, but you cannot control what they're thinking. True free-range animals. We are not including the kind that are used in canned hunts because, like I said, go shoot your house cat. It's going to have the same effect. When it comes to leopards and lions now, you've baited them, you've brought them and you've built a blind. The thing with hunting one of the cats is that a lot of strategy and tactics are required. They are so intelligent. They are so on top of the ball. You are outthinking them. On an intelligence level, they are cleverer generally than Plains game. They notice everything. They notice just a slight movement of a barrel through the shooting gap in the blind. They notice if you've moved the meat. They smell if you've come up to the bait and walked around it, and that can put them off. Not to mention, often with them, it can be a nocturnal circumstance. In Zimbabwe, you're not allowed to hunt the cats at night in Parks and Wildlife Estate. So hunting ends at 6:30 in the evening and commences at 6:30 the next morning. In that space in between, you're not allowed to hunt them. So in those areas, yes, if you could get a cat coming in early enough, technically you wouldn't be hunting them at night. But a lot of these hunts are done on private land where spotlights are allowed in use and night hunting is allowed in use. And in those situations, using a bow in the dark is very, very difficult, especially over a further distance. And with cats, distance is very important. You can build a tree blind with your bow for Plains game or something like that, and it can be 30 yards away. They're not as aware of their surroundings. If you build a blind 30 yards from a leopard, you better be very, very quiet when you go in there to shoot it, because 30 yards is no amount of space whatsoever for one of the cats. Blinds much further away are often picked up by lions as they do loops around the bait and the bait trees, and they find the blinds, or they see it even though it's made to blend into the bush. They're so intelligent, they're so aware of their surroundings, they'll notice the blind and they'll notice that it wasn't there the day before, and they will come up and have a good old sniff. And that is also not fun. You're now sitting sometimes on the floor in a blind. A big lion is walking around you from very close distance. It's not really giving you a chance for a good shot. I mean, it's sniffing the back of the blind, the sides of the blind. You can't see out of that. You can hear it. It's quite hectic. All in all, I think if we zero it down, from an ethics standpoint, blind hunting in certain situations is not very sporting. If I'm going to sit in a bow blind at a water point with a gun and shoot a wildebeest from 30 yards away, the end results, if you're a good bow hunter and if you're a good shot, are the same. You kill the animal. And if you're good with a gun or if you're good with a bow, it will be reasonably painless. Remember, the dispute in hunting, in my opinion, is that people say it's cruelty to the animal. So the objective of hunting when you hunt well is to cause as little suffering as possible. That's why gin traps and snares, such as poachers use, are so terrible. More often than not, they wound animals. They don't even kill them. And even when they do kill them, it can sometimes take days for this to happen. It's very, very inhumane. It's very cruel. However, when you use a bow or a rifle, if you know what you're doing, which you should if you're going to put yourself in the bush and decide to be a hunter, you will do it reasonably painlessly, very quickly. It'll be over. It'll be finished. It's an animal well hunted. So from an ethics standpoint, it's really only a case of what makes more of a hunt. If you sit 30 yards away with a bow and try to shoot a wildebeest and you succeed, that's a much greater accomplishment than doing it with a rifle. From a logical standpoint, at the end of the day, it is all hunting. The animal does end up dead, and be it rifle, be it bow, it should be, if you know how to use it, quite reasonably painless and quite reasonably quick, which is the most important factor. We don't want to cause these animals suffering, but as I said in episode 1, the first video on this channel, which again you guys should definitely look at, hunting is a requirement for conservation. We just want to do it well. So, using a bow from a blind, using a gun from a blind, and using a blind at all, I don't think it is wrong from that standpoint, especially if it's done correctly. It still works out fine for the animal. But from a sporting point, so the ethical point of view, I don't think it's fair to use a rifle from a blind for Plains game, or to hide behind a tree where they can't see you at a water point and then just shoot them. Obviously, sometimes if you're in a rush or if it's quite urgent, I mean, you'll do this because it's the quickest means. But if you have choice, then I think that gun should be a walk and stalking situation until we bring predators into it or dangerous game into it, as in lions, leopards, hyenas. These blinds are often very far away. You're hunting at night, so the more effective method would be a gun. You don't want to be wounding things and injuring things with a bow because you're now trying to keep up that standard from night blinds, further away blinds. which basically covers the use of weapons from a blind. So I don't know. That's my opinion on it, but I think it's very important that you guys put forth an opinion as well. So please use the comment section and let me know what you think, because I definitely want to find out. And it's important to me what you say. I want to do a few videos just going through comments, answering them, a Q&A of sorts, but I can't do that without the comments. So fill in the comment section. Having gone over the methods of hunting from a blind, let's talk about the blind itself. So as I said, a blind is basically a shelter built to blend into the bush. Some people say this is wrong because the animal doesn't know you're there. It's an ambush of sorts, which I get where they're coming from, but I think it's also important to note that it is by no means easy. When you build a blind, you have to build something that they are not going to notice, that they are not going to pick up on, that they're hopefully not going to walk into, and that they're hopefully not going to be able to smell you from. And that is a massive thing. Even if you build, for an example, in a leopard situation, you can build on the right side of the wind, knowing where your bait is. When the cat is at the bait, it won't be able to smell you. But you can't guarantee the direction that it comes in from. You can't guarantee that when it comes in, it's not going to do a big loop just because it's cautious, look around, bump into the blind, catch a whiff of you. And 99% of the time, if they smell you, they're gone. Wind is a very important factor in hunting, and it's something that's uncontrollable. And however, or wherever you build a blind, you can't control where your animal is walking either. Like I said, true wild animals have independent thinking, and quite frankly, they outsmart hunters a great deal more than most of us let on, if I'm going to tell you the truth. Having said that, I think to zero down, we have to look at the fact that hunting with a blind requires tactic, strategy, and patience, which most people would say isn't exactly a chore, but believe me, as someone who has spent entire nights in blinds trying to shoot hyenas that have been killing cattle, it is very, very trying, okay? After 6 hours of sitting in the exact same position, in the exact same place, waiting for something to come in, that is a true test of stamina, even if it's not the sort that we get tested on when we're walking 12 kilometers after something in the heat and tracking it. They're different ends of the same string, in my opinion. So I think, to say it plainly, blind hunting is not wrong, because doing it right requires a lot of mental stamina and a lot of mental forwardness. You have to be so strategic. Where will it go? How far away will it be? Where does the animal usually come in from? Which way does the wind go? The wind is blowing east right now, but maybe tonight it'll blow west. Wind direction does change, especially in areas that aren't flat. There is so much tactic behind it, and there are so many ways it can go wrong. I don't think it is unfair to the animal. And then we go weapons from a blind. Frankly, if you know how to use your weapon, the end result will ultimately be the same. The animal will be dead. And if you know how to use your weapon, it will be dead humanely, quickly, over and done with. So when it comes to the weapon you use, that is less a question of is it wrong or is it right, or is it as much a sport of the hunt? Is it as ethical as the hunt itself? I mean, it is very easy to sit with a gun hidden behind a bush 30 yards from something and shoot it. Not quite so easy with a bow. When you bring in nighttime, guns are obviously the easier way to go, because whatever weapon you're picking, you want to pick a weapon that will do the job effectively, because like I said, you don't want to cause the animal any unnecessary suffering. But I think it's also a valid point to remember that you still want, at the end of it, to be able to say, I did win, I did shoot this animal, but it is an accomplishment because it was no easy task, and I didn't just take the easiest route that takes the sport out of the hunt itself. So those are my thoughts on blind hunting. I hope it made sense, but this is just what I believe, this is just what I think, and I think it would be very, very progressive if you guys would fill out the comment section with your thoughts about it, because I do think that the channel needs to have discussions where we just bring up the comments and see what other people think. Why is it right? Why is it wrong? And etc. etc. So that is all for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe if you don't want to miss anything, because I'm pretty sure you don't want to miss anything. I hope so. And I will see you at next week's video. Have a great rest of your weekend, and don't forget to fill out the comment section.